Walnuts from several of our mature trees here at Simple Moon Farm was our first commercial harvest. Clips in this video represent months of my work with this crop. Of course, the walnuts don't drop all at once, and you don't want the squirrels to get too many. So it's a good idea to get out there every couple of days to pick them up while they're dropping. I kept buckets under trees that I'd be walking past on a daily basis. That way, I could just toss a few in as I was walking by, seeing new walnuts on the ground. For trees in more out-of-the-way parts of our pasture, I'd go out and come back with 2 5-gallon buckets at a time. I brush hogged under some of the trees out here so the walnuts wouldn't just get lost in tall grass when they dropped. Here's the walnuts that I picked up. Somehow it seems like I spent more work than this volume represents. A little windy right now. There's a company called Hammond's Products. They're the ones that are going to buy these raw walnuts from us. This job will drive you nuts.
Oh yeah, literally. That's a good one. That's a good one. Walnuts used to be my favorite thing to eat, and now I don't want them no more.
Selling walnuts at that hulling station was an interesting experience. It was easy and convenient, but not lucrative. I'm glad it was so close to where we live. You could easily spend more on gas than you make from the sale.
So you can keep it as full as you want to. Once I put these in, I won't be able to hear you no more.
So we are at 91 pounds. I would have thought it'd be more. Half of the weight is in the hull, and they pay based on the weight after the hull is removed. 91 pounds meant I picked up 182 pounds of walnuts, one at a time by hand. For all of this effort, I was paid the grand sum of $11. It's ridiculous. I'm glad I'm walking through this process for the YouTube content and not as a way to make a living.
Brian Grimes. What do you do on your YouTube channel?
It's called Simple Moon Farm. And it's got 40 acres. It's all about raising animals, doing gardens, homesteads, scale.
Definitely going to check yours out.
You want to take this?
You take it into the lady at the front desk in that office, and then Brooke, she'll get you some cash.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
While I was in line with my truck at that hulling station, a guy came over just to see if I wanted to pick up the walnuts in his yard. They make a mess, and you don't want to hit them with a mower. I declined the offer of free walnuts. Not all of the walnuts had fallen by the last day to sell at that hulling station. So armed with the knowledge of the wholesale fleecing of my labor for unprocessed walnuts, I resolved to see the value of processing the walnuts myself. A couple days ago, we had some really strong winds that finally knocked the rest of those walnuts out of our trees. I ended up collecting almost 5 buckets of extra walnuts. My main project right now is fencing for our doe enclosure, and I'm at the stage of setting posts in concrete. Well, we've got a couple days of rain ahead of us, so this is a good time to process the walnuts. 4 of these buckets had been used as containers to plant in, so they already had holes in the bottom to let moisture drain away from the walnuts. That center one just had a crack in the bottom of it. The lids kept squirrels from absconding with our treasure. Incidentally, all those cardboard boxes of walnuts that you saw in the back of my truck, I kept those safe from squirrels by keeping them in our cargo trailer. This is my first time processing walnuts, so I'm glad to just be working with this many. The first step is removing the hull. This happens to be my favorite pocket knife. My brother gave me this one. It's got a little lever right here to flip it out and open it with one hand. Man, it is really raining. I'm not going to be using this knife just in case the walnut goo irreversibly gums it up. I'm going to move back a little bit. The wind is blowing the rain in a little. It's the next day, and I'm still not quite done hulling the walnuts. This is my last bucket. I've just got about half of it. The spent hulls are getting pretty full in here. Rainy days are a good day to do this. I just turned the radio on and was out here all day working on it. Some of the walnuts just crumbled right off, the hull just came right off. Some of them were pretty easy to cut through and twist off. Some of them you really had to work at. When you cut through these things, you can kind of tell which ones are going to be easy or not. This one is an easy one. It just falls apart. Just falls right out. Really nice. This one felt a little, the hull felt a little thinner and a little tougher, so this one probably requires a little more force. That's still not too bad, and it came off nice. It's pretty satisfying when that happens. As you can see, this one, yeah, this one wasn't too bad, but it still kind of breaks apart a little when it gets getting that second half off. Okay, here's one that's really tough. I've sliced through the whole thing, and I just really put a lot of force on it, and it's not coming off. It's kind of small anyways. I'm not going to worry about that one. There's some controversy about whether it's a good idea to compost black walnut hulls or not. Some people say that it's just the living root exudates of walnut trees that actually suppresses plants, and the husks, the hulls are just fine. Other people say that it's definitely going to kill some plants. Well, I don't have to compost them in my regular compost pile. I can use them as mulch along our fence line, and it would be great if they also suppress some of the stuff that grows along the fence line that I don't want. So, win-win. After the holes have been removed, the second step for processing these walnuts is to continue cleaning all that gunk off. To help with that, I've got a paint mixer hooked up to my drill. Buckets with holes, buckets without holes. So these are clean enough to separate the bad ones. You see how some of them float to the top? These are not good. So get rid of the floaters. Another floater. 5 buckets of raw walnuts after taking the hulls off and removing the floaters yielded 1 bucket of walnuts ready to dry. That's the next step. I was a little ambitious when I built my squirrel-proof drying rack system here. They are 1/4-inch hardware cloth screens, 2x4 feet, attached to 2x4 frames with screws and washers. I built 5 of them because I wasn't quite sure how many I needed, but also because the 4-foot roll came in 10-foot lengths, so I could get 5 of them out of that. I'll leave them clamped together with little 1/4-inch spacers between the screens that I actually use. The drying time should be about 3 to 6 weeks. From what I've read, letting them dry gives them a better flavor. It also lets the nut shrink a little bit inside the shell so it detaches itself from that interior surface, and when you crack them, it's easier to get the nuts out. It's been about 6 weeks, and I'm ready to crack nuts. It may seem counterintuitive, but after waiting that long for the nuts to dry, I've soaked them in water for 24 hours. As I understand it, the moisture shouldn't penetrate the shell, but it should make that shell a little bit easier to crack. I'm doing them in small batches because it does take a while. Let me show you my setup here. The bucket of water with the nuts, a towel to lightly dry them off. Here's my container for the nuts when I'm done. This is an antique clamp that I got at Habitat for Humanity Restore. It works kind of like a vise, and this is what I'm going to use to crack the nuts. Of course, I've got the box down there for the shell pieces. Alright, so here's a little nut piece that you can see how it comes out. Alright, look at this one. That's the biggest piece so far. Cracking walnuts became part of my daily routine. After morning chores, I'd get more walnuts to soak for 24 hours before cracking the walnuts that had already been soaked for 24 hours. I'm a few days in, cracking these nuts in small batches. I'm about half done. I've been keeping this big container in the refrigerator and just filling it back up with the small nuts as I go. Here's what all that effort produced. It's okay, Indigo. Remember, I started with just 5-gallon buckets of raw walnuts. Goaties, I don't need this much help. I don't need this much help, goaties. Okay, hold on. You're gonna give away something I'm trying to do. All right. Come on, goats. From what I've read, the light amber-colored ones are considered more aesthetically pleasing, and therefore they're a little more expensive. The darker ones taste just about the same. They just grew a little bit more in the sunlight on the trees. You don't want to keep the really dark shriveled ones. It's okay. Come on. Yeah. Come on, goats. It's goat treat time, so they think I've got treats for them right here. This whole box is full of nutshells. The best use for these is going to be as a mulch right here in the muddiest Yeah. Yes, it is. The best use for these shells is going to be as a mulch right here on the muddiest part of the path to our goat shelter. All right, Indigo. I'm glad to have experienced this process. It's good to know that I can process walnuts myself, but it's just so much work, and that work is so tedious. I'm not in a big hurry to do this in the future. Going forward, what can I do with about 200 pounds of walnuts from our own trees? We're thinking about getting pigs, and walnuts would be a good supplement to their feed. Thanks for watching. Remember, your dreams are closer than the moon. Thanks for taking this trip around the moon with us.